So what we're going to talk about today, real quick, I only want to do this for 30 minutes, so that folks kind of get the important points and can always follow up with us afterwards for sort of one-on-one stuff. So what we're looking to talk about today, as I noted, is IDIQs, right? So most specifically, NASA SOUP, the hot topic of the day, because everybody who's doing IT is most likely looking at NASA SOUP, right? It's a pretty large contract, follow on to NASA 5, SOUP 5. So now we're going to SOUP 6. How do we do that with Rogue? IDIQs can be, particularly the solicitations for IDIQs can be a little bit different, right? If you go and look, as I'm sure all of you have, at SOUP 6, let me see if I can pull this thing over here real quick and show, SOUP 6 is 150 pages long, just the RFP. And then there's all these different attachments, right? So program performance kind of attachments A, B, and C are sort of the most important, at least from sort of a proposal standpoint from what I grok through it. And to be perfectly candid, I am not proposing to SOUP 6. So I don't have a dog in this fight, but obviously our customers are, and I want our customers to know how to use the tool effectively for doing that. So first things first, what not to do. This, and I'm skipping a little bit ahead, right? We're not going to watch this happen in real time, but using the outline and the compliance matrix tools in the system, this is basically what you get. So if you just take the SOUP RFP and attachment A, B, and C, right, and you use those to create the outline, right? So if I come here and I say, I've uploaded the SOUP document, so I just take sort of the scope and the RFP, and I let that work. This is the outline I end up with, right? Which is not exactly ideal, right? I'll take a look at the actual SOUP RFP in a minute. But the compliance matrix is actually super good, right? So compliance matrix is pretty comprehensive. It is pretty in depth, right? This is a fairly large solicitation, so there's a lot of shalls, wills, must, mays. But if you all want to write proposals, right? And so the platform needs to support that. So in the case of an IDIQ, it's going to take a little bit more human attention than sort of straight up RFP, right? So if we actually look at the RFP for SOUP 6, right? So let's pull this up, not to belabor the point or bore anybody, but I think the actual instructions to offers is on page 105 or something like that, right? So down here in the actual instructions, when you look at what the government actually wants in their proposal volumes, right? There's several volumes in here and there's a page count, right? But they give you the instructions on the volumes. So for this one, I think there's 3 volumes. And then the most important one, sort of the largest volume, is this sort of volume 2, which includes, sorry if I'm making anybody's eyes roll, it includes subfactor A and B. So the mission suitability volume includes technical approach, so subfactor A, and then management approach, subfactor B. And then this is the part where just trusting AI to grok this out and give you the ideal outline is not the best route, right? That works really well with pretty straightforward solicitations. With these more complex solicitations, you need a little bit more human in the loop, right? And specifically, there's 3 different categories, right? So if you are an offer, you can propose to multiple different categories, and there are sort of proposal instructions that are unique to each category. So you have to tailor the outline a little bit more when you are building it out, right? And you have to put sort of your human eyes on that as it's building out that outline. So brass tacks, what does this mean? So if you are going to build out your response, step 1, as usual, is always create your compliance matrix. Why is that? Well, number 1, because you need a compliance matrix. But number 2, And so this is straightforward, right? The actual process, right? If we're going to go soup to nuts, if I'm going to go in and create a new NASA soup, ironic, right? Uh, pun intended, right? If I'm going to create a new NASA soup proposal package, I'm going to create a new proposal. I'm going to name this, call this NASA soup. Soup. BI. I already have one in there that I'm going to show you in a second. So I'll call this a -2. Right. I'm going to create my compliance matrix first. How do I do that? I can upload all those soup documents if I want, right? So creating your proposal level data shelf is important. So I can take, if I like, all of these documents that come out in the soup RFP, I can upload all of these documents, right? You are more than welcome to do that. And it's particularly probably a good idea. Some of these documents are not going to be super relevant, but things like the Q&A, right, that have gone from the multiple revisions and the multiple updates, you probably want that context in the data shelf for the AI to index. So step one, upload all these documents, right? Step two, create your compliance matrix. And we can do that as simple as finding soup. So here we are. I take my scope, my final RFP, and I'll generate that compliance matrix. While that's working, I can come over and start my outline essentially the same way. If I want to, I can do the reference documents, right? I can find my soup documents in here. I can add those in just like I did with the compliance matrix generator. And those things will start building out that outline, right? Those sort of 3 steps is exactly what I did to create this initial outline. Now, when I look at this initial outline and I look at the RFP, it doesn't exactly match because the AI did its best to read through and identify the required outline, but it doesn't know whether you are proposing to category A, B, or C. It doesn't know if you are a small business or a large business, right? It doesn't have enough sort of dynamic critical thinking to tailor that outline specifically to your sort of proposal environment. And this is somewhat unique to IDIQs in some cases, right? There's a wide variation in how the government wants their proposals back. If you go and look, if anybody's doing work with DHS, like PAX 3 is basically a spreadsheet game as far as I can tell, right? So almost no technical writing required there. It's all about building out your past performance matrices and doing your self-scoring. So my suggestion, the way to do this best is to, it doesn't hurt to have the AI generate this initial outline, right? It at least gives me a structure to work from. It alleviates me having to do the manual effort of actually building out this outline. But what I'm going to do is after I've got this, I can look at this and say, well, no, what the RFP says, the organization as stipulated by the RFP is that I need to have this mission suitability volume. Like this is my most critical first volume. So I'm going to make sure that that is the name. So I can come in here and like, all right, it didn't really get the volume name right. So I'm going to do this, call it my mission suitability volume. And then underneath that, I can create my subvolumes. So for instance, management approach is a volume under my mission suitability volume. So I can bring that in, right? And I'm actually gonna, so you saw I dragged that section up. So again, I'm gonna reuse, I'm gonna leverage the value that is in the outline that was generated for me. But you can see here, like this volume is an independent volume. This is an independent volume. I'm going to go ahead and subordinate this volume to this top one. So now you see my management approach is now a subsection of my mission suitability volume. So this is my overall document. right? This mission suitability volume is my overall document. And this is going to be a subsection. So I'll go ahead and rename this subfactor. I think this is subfactor A, right? Cool. Let me go back to my RFP and just double check. So there's my mission suitability. Oh, I'm sorry, technical approach. That's my subfactor A. Yeah. So management approach is actually subfactor B. So technical approach, let's make sure that that section is in there. Go back. Is there a technical approach in here that I can just pull? No, see, it missed my technical approach. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a section under my mission suitability volume. I'm going to add a section right here, right? So here's my new section. I'm going to call that technical approach, subfactor A, okay? Okay, and I'm actually going to bring this up because this is subfactor A. I want this ahead of my management approach, which was subfactor B. So let's make sure that make sure this is consistent. Factor B, cool. And then, so for my technical approach, I can build this out if I want to by hand, if it didn't build it for me. So I'm going to add in a couple of sections here, and I'm just going to make sure that my outline matches what the government is asking for, right? So here in my technical approach, for all categories, the offer must provide back. It's easier if you like dual screen this and you kind of bounce back and forth. So give it a summary. That's fine. Put instructions in there. And for most cases, you can just drop content in here, right? I can just pull this stuff out of the RFP and drop it in. So I'm going to do one copy and then I'll break it out. And you can see I can take content directly from the RFP and drop it in to my outline instructions. Okay. Some instructions here. ITC, AV. Yep. This one here. Maybe I'll just copy paste this. CAV solutions architecture. Okay, cool. So, and important thing to note, this is a sort of a new feature. If you haven't seen it before, you can actually reference specific documents in the outline. So if I have a document in my data shelf that is relevant to a specific item, maybe it's a piece of past performance, maybe it is an architecture document, maybe it is a catalog, right? Or a past proposal that I've written that is relevant to that specific thing. I can find that item and include it as a specific document that I want the AI to reference when it is building out this section content, right? I referenced actually the program performance for SOUP 6 because in the program performance document, they have articulations of what it is they want, right? So I can specify what I want the AI to index while it's doing its generation, right? So the other thing I'll note is we did the compliance matrix, right? So here's the compliance matrix in all of its glory. Here's my outline. Now, you'll notice, if you haven't seen this before, that the compliance matrix is also co-hosted in the outline interface. And this is so that I can come through, and if I want to lace in items from the compliance matrix, I can do that directly into the outline. And I can do that by, maybe I want to look for any ITC requirements, so I can lace those things in, right? So we can pick an area, put it right here, right? So I pick the section. So here's my outline. Here's the outline recreated as a menu. And I can just like select which area I want to put in, and I can drop it in. Okay? And so then there's specific instructions here to, you know, describe those requirements. So it very easily drops the shalls and wills into your outline. And you can also work through these things, right? So as I'm lacing in the requirements, I can check off those boxes, right? That I've, you know, placed those into the outline, and the AI will then generate that content as it's doing initial generation, right? So that's, with this particular one, again, there's a lot of shall statements, so it's pretty comprehensive. But that was how I built out my initial outline. So I'll jump into another proposal here. So when I was building out my initial NASA soup, my outline looks like this. So I've built out all of my tiers of proposal content, right? So I went between the outline and the shall statements, right, that are required. And I laced in the ones that made sense to make a nice, like, deep, robust proposal outline. And so then when I go to do the initial generation, right, I can take my, you know, technical approach and work through the initial generation workflow and build out a fairly robust proposal. So let's show that now, right? So we'll take the IDIQ, take my outline here. So we'll just do volume 1, mission suitability volume, create a document off of that. This is fine. Next, there's my outline that we were just looking at. That's fine. And then for this, the description, again, there's some variation here, right? Which categories are you going after? Are you small or large business? What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the program scope, which is about 8 pages. And I'll probably leave out electronic processes and ordering guides. But I am going to include customer support services. Do that. Go back in. I'm going to drop it right here. Fine. Now, again, I'm going to make sure that what gets dropped in here is pretty comprehensive. So it cut down the acquisition objectives, the scope, government ordering. Okay, gave me some win themes. I would obviously edit these win themes if I wanted to. I'd do a last once over the world, and then we can actually generate it. Okay. Now, if you're bidding on Soup 6 and you're if you're going after multiple categories, right? Maybe you're going through all 3. You can create, I would personally probably create a separate war room for each of those categories. So you can tailor the documentation, you can tailor the specific outlines, or you can just kind of do them in sequence, right? Because the proposal structure is based off of the outline. Or you could build one war room with one single, one very large outline interface, right? And you could tailor different outlines within that one stack to the individual categories that you're responding to. And that way you can respond to multiple categories in one shot. Obviously, the trade-off there is compliance, right? So if you want to ensure compliance for each of the category proposals you're putting in, you would need a separate war room for each of those categories. So a little bit up to you, but that's probably how I would end up doing it. Okay, so this is going to generate for a quick minute. While we're doing that, I got 8 minutes left on the call. Any questions about this specifically or the platform in general while this is grinding through? Feel free to drop them in the chat. This is moving. Let's see. What are the page limits on this? I'm trying to remember. I think it's like 45 pages total. $95. There we go. Okay, so for mission suitability volume, it looks like we have 15 pages. And then 15 pages for the management volume. So 30 pages total for that mission suitability volume, if I'm reading that right. Cool. All right, cool. So here is our initial draft, right? So this is it. And then from here, right, we can use all the typical tools. So we can do, oh, I actually have Q&A. Perfect. Sorry for missing that. Okay, so quick questions. How do you get your corporate experience examples included in the text? Great question. So let me pop back out and show you that. So what I would do if I was building this, right, I have corporate past performance that I want referenced when I'm doing my initial generation, right? I would, step one, upload those into my proposal level war room, right? So this is the data shelf within this demo org or within this demo war room. I would upload those documents here, right? So let's talk road props. Let's call this one, right? Maybe that's one that I want to reference. So when I'm actually writing or when I'm generating the outline, what I can do, as I kind of showed earlier, is let's talk. When I'm building this out, I can select that document. Right. And so if I know there's a specific past performance document that I want included, I can instruct the AI to reference that document specifically. And it will do that, right? It will take this instruction for this section in this part of the document, and it will reference that specific past performance document as it's doing its generation. And I can do this with multiple documents, right? So if I have multiple documents in there that I want referenced, I can index a number of them. How is the government biased toward or against LLM generation proposals? Good question, Tim. So I would say the majority of the government is not strongly, well, supposedly they're not strongly biased against it. However, you all know that, well, if you're looking at soup at all, you know that in this one specifically, to official. There is this clause where you have to identify any consultants or generative AI that was used or subcontractor used in writing the proposal. So if you get any help to include AI, you have to call it out. Frankly, I think that's a good thing because it's effectively putting Gen AI on the same tier as a live consultant. I think it's a net positive, but it is what it is. You have to call it out. They know that it's coming, but they can't really do much about it. And they're also using AI on the other side. So I don't see anybody prohibiting it anytime soon. The one thing I will say on that, Tim, is that the thing they're worried about is people proposing things they don't know how to deliver, right? Not a new problem, but a problem that has become easier because there's AI. And so the thing that I would do is very clearly ensure that your company capabilities, right? Your unique capabilities are articulated and very evident in your proposals so that they are, whether you use AI or not, right? That's the best practice, but they're going to be looking for folks who are more generic. Let's see, for the war room, that is where all the docs go. You mentioned a war room within a war room for different categories. Oh no, okay. So if I'm going to, let me pop back here. Okay, so for Soup 6 specifically, you can, as I understand it, effectively put in 3 proposals, right? There's 3 different categories, A, B, and C. So the way, if I wanted to put in for more than one category, I personally would build a separate war room for each category proposal, right? So I would do, category A, and I would set up a separate war room and do the sort of setup and development steps for, we'll call this NASA Soup 6 category B. And the reason for that is the outline is going to be a little bit different because there's slightly different requirements in the different categories. But more importantly, you're going to have to be compliant in each one of those proposals. And the compliance matrix is at the war room level. So you're going to want to have a compliance matrix that is independent for each one of those category submissions. If you're only bidding on one topic or one category, then that's not really relevant. Anonymous attendee, can you go over the basic steps again for first building? Yes. So real quick, step 1, create a new proposal. Call this Soup 6. Call this category C, right? Fine. Step 1, go to your data shelf, upload all the documents. For Soup 6, there's a bunch of them. You can upload all of it, right? So just upload them all. You can totally do that. I'm not going to do that because it's superfluous. Step 2, go to your compliance generator and find all the Soup documents that you want to reference. I think for Soup, the primary documents that have all the shalls, wills, musts, mays, etc., are the scope document and the final RFP. If somebody else is an expert on Soup, please don't. Feel free to correct me. So you're going to create your compliance matrix first or next. So hit add solicitation documents, and it'll start generating your compliance matrix. And then after that, you basically complete or repeat those steps for creating your initial outline. Again here, find Soup, pick your documents. And then once you've created your outline, okay, so we'll go back over here. Once you've created your outline, then you tailor your outline. You can tailor your outline with specific instructions. You can move all these different sections around. You can use the shall statements, which will then be nested in your outline view. You can drop those into different outline sections. but those are kind of the initial steps for starting up. And if you have additional, like if you want more hands-on, you can get a one-on-one. My chat is disabled. Section LCM, so numbered. The art of all compliance matrices. Can Rogue extract the associated numbers with section titles for the RFP? Interesting. It can, right? So if you go to compliance, right, it actually does have the reference here. So it's indexed. Now, whether or not you use those indexes when you're writing, right? Like you actually call out the cross references or the matrix references, is, I mean, sometimes it's required, sometimes it's a matter of writing preference. So it doesn't natively generate that content in the proposal, but it can. Okay, that was a fast draft. That is true. So when you add corporate experience, we'll use only for that specific section. Yes. So if you reference a specific document, it will only reference that specific document when it's generating that specific section. Do you have to name the Gen AI engine you are using? Or as far as I understand from the text of the RFP, it is just you have to call it out. You have to cite whether or not you use AI, subcontractors, or consultants in your writing. Can the tool ID suggest appropriate callouts? Not part of the solution. You mean like generating callout boxes or like proof points to call out? You could, if you wanted to do that, right? You could actually do it. I would probably do it in the actual writing interface. So go back, too many different. Where's my soup six there? So I would probably do it this way. I would do something like this. Give me a brief proof point that cites relevant past performance. So it'll find, I don't know, I personally don't have a whole lot going on there, but I can pull a relevant proof point here, and I can just concise that down into something that I put into a call out box. Let's see, government use AI to assess proposals. Tim, yes, that will increase exponentially in the next 12 months. Thanks, Tim. Is there any way for the government to know engine? Great question, Stephen. So the question is, can the AI detect, or can the government detect AI if you use it? The short answer is no. I haven't seen anybody get DQ'd for using AI yet, at least not explicitly. But if they do, what I can tell you is that all the AI detection engines are not effective. So if for whatever reason you get DQ'd for using AI, whether you do or not, I would strongly advise you to protest it, because that's asinine. And I think that's my last question. And now I am 4 minutes over my allotted time. If anybody has any questions or wants a follow up, please feel free to reach out. Hit the contact us form right there on the webpage. And thank you all for the time. I'll be posting this video on our YouTube if you want to follow up on it. Thanks.